Hi, my name is nobody now. At least, that's what I became the moment they decided I wasn't useful anymore. My sister screamed that I'd ruined their lives. My husband, he didn't scream. He just dragged my suitcase to the curb, threw out the cat my grandmother left me, and shut the door. All while I was still sitting there, in my wheelchair. And my mother? She watched, silent. Didn't say a word. I didn't fight back. I just left. Quietly. And stopped the $42,000 a month I was giving them. But this morning, I woke up to 83 missed calls. Now I wonder, was I ever loved or just used until empty? Before we dive in, what time are you listening and where are you? Let me know in the comments. Because this story, it's not just mine. It might be yours too. I could hear them before I even rolled into the hallway. Muffled voices, a laugh that died too quickly, the clink of a glass being set down on the marble counter I paid for. My hands rested on the wheels of my chair, but I didn't move just yet. I waited, listening, feeling that familiar knot tighten beneath my ribs. This wasn't my home. It was a house I financed, a space filled with things I'd chosen, paid for, signed off on, but never truly belonged to. I pushed forward slowly. The wheel squeaked faintly as I rolled past the living room archway. Conversations stopped. Eyes didn't meet mine. Just a beat too long of silence before Letitia's voice snapped back into gear, unnaturally cheerful. "There she is," she muttered, not even trying to hide the annoyance. I kept my face blank. I'd learned over the years. Don't flinch, don't fight, don't feed them anything they can twist. I moved toward the kitchen. The evening sun had dipped low, casting sharp golden lines through the blinds. It hit the family photo on the wall, me standing, back when I still could, with a smile so wide it looked fake even then. That woman was gone. This one, wheeling herself in quietly, was apparently easier to forget. Letitia leaned against the counter, arms crossed. My husband, Danilo, stood beside her, sipping something from the crystal tumbler he claimed was too elegant for everyday use. Funny how nothing was too expensive when I paid for it. I parked at the edge of the room. "Everything okay?" My voice was calm, but my stomach knew better. Letitia didn't hesitate. She turned toward me like a dam had broken behind her eyes. "You've ruined our lives," she said, spitting the words like they burned her tongue. "You come in here with your money, your chair, your pity, thinking you're better than us." I blinked. I didn't— "No, don't you dare interrupt me." Her voice cracked. "I've had it. You act like we owe you everything. You pay for things, sure, but you lord it over us like you're some kind of savior." She stepped closer, her hands shaking. "You made Mom feel like a burden. You treat Danilo like an assistant. And me? I'm just some charity case to you, right?" I couldn't speak. I wasn't sure my throat would let me. Letitia kept going. "We've had to tiptoe around you for years. Everything's about you. Your health, your schedule, your feelings. Well, guess what? The world doesn't revolve around you just because you write the checks." Every word hit like a slap, not because they were true, but because she believed them. I looked at Danilo. He didn't move, didn't even blink. "Danny," I said quietly, "say something." He finished his drink and set the glass down carefully. "We'd be happier without you," he said, his tone disturbingly even. "This house, it's heavy with you in it." There was no anger in his voice, no raised pitch, just flat, cold certainty. That hurt more than if he'd screamed. Letitia stood with arms folded again, nodding like she'd just won something. I swallowed hard and looked past them, out the window. The lawn I paid to have mowed last Thursday looked perfect. The hydrangeas I'd planted last summer, dead. They never watered them. I thought about the money. I never said it out loud before. Not to them, not even to myself. But it flooded in now, uninvited. $4,200 for the mortgage, $1,300 for Letitia's son's private school, $900 for mom's medication, $2,600 for Danello's car lease, health insurance, food, internet, gas cards, subscriptions, the dog groomer, the cat's vet. Every single month, $42,000. I paid for all of it, quietly, without asking for gratitude, and now they were telling me I was the problem. Danello stepped toward me. "You'll be okay. We just need space. You should go." Before I could process what he meant, he disappeared down the hall. I heard the closet door open. Moments later, he came back, my suitcase clutched in his hand. He walked past me and opened the front door. The evening breeze rushed in. Then came the sound I'll never forget. A low meow. He carried the cat, my grandmother's cat, the only thing I had left of her, by the scruff, like she was some pest he was tossing out with the garbage. He set her down beside the suitcase and turned back. I was still sitting there, still in my chair, still inside. He didn't even look at me as he reached for the door handle. My mother stood at the end of the hallway, arms at her sides, still as stone. "Mom?" My voice cracked. She didn't answer. She didn't even flinch. Just stood there, eyes unreadable, like she was watching a car accident she didn't feel involved in. I wheeled forward slowly. My hands moved on autopilot, my breath steady and controlled, because if I let it crack, if I let them see one tear, they'd feel justified. I reached the front door, passed the threshold, and paused. I didn't say a word, no scene, no screams, no demands, because they didn't deserve them. I reached for my suitcase, picked up the cat, who purred softly, unaware. The door slammed behind me. I didn't look back. They thought I was leaving with nothing, but I was about to take something they never saw coming. The suitcase thumped against the asphalt as I wheeled forward, one hand gripping the handle, the other guiding the chair. The cat squirmed slightly in my lap, her small body pressed against mine like she could sense I needed something to hold on to. The night air was sharp, not cold exactly, but sharp enough to remind me I was out. Alone. The streetlights hummed above, casting long shadows. I didn't cry, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't feel anything yet. It was like my body had hit some kind of emergency switch. Numb first, feel later. I didn't have a plan beyond leaving. I'd seen a motel a few blocks over, ugly yellow sign, flickering, vacancy light. That would do for now. I moved slow, careful not to jolt the cat, careful not to think too much. The wheels clattered slightly as I crossed the curb. No one from the house came after me, not even to pretend. The motel clerk didn't look up until I was right in front of him, middle-aged, distracted, chewing something with his mouth open. He barely looked at my face, just glanced at the chair, the cat, the suitcase. "Single or double?" "Single," I said. He pushed a form toward me. I signed. He slid over a key. Room 108. His eyes went back to the small TV behind him, like I hadn't been there at all. The hallway smelled like bleach and smoke. Thin walls, floral carpet. When I got to the room, I locked the door before I even turned on the light. Just sat there for a while, hand still on the knob, the cat curled tighter in my lap. It was the first time in years no one needed anything from me. No bills to pay tonight, no dinner to make. No fake smiles across the table, no silence to fill with questions no one wanted answers to. The room was awful. Harsh lighting, lumpy bed, loud refrigerator. But I could breathe. I placed the cat gently on the blanket, gave her a small bowl of water from the bathroom sink, then sat at the edge of the bed and just stared. Everything they said rang in my head like leftover thunder. "You've ruined our lives. We'd be happier without you." I thought about the way Danello had looked at me, like I was already halfway gone. The worst part wasn't that they didn't love me. The worst part was realizing they never even missed the version of me they said they did. They didn't want me there. They wanted what came with me. That thought didn't hurt the way I expected it to. It didn't tear at me. It settled like a stone at the bottom of a calm lake. They never feared losing me, only what I provided, and they were about to. I opened my laptop. The motel Wi-Fi was spotty, but it was enough. My fingers hovered for a second before I started typing. I opened the bank portal first, paused the mortgage payment. Click. Tuition for Letitia's son? Paused. Health insurance for mom? Canceled. Car lease under Danello's name? Gone. One by one. No announcements. No angry texts. No explanation. Just a quiet dismantling, not to punish, just to stop participating. I'd paid to stay useful. That job was over. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I shut the lid. I lay down fully dressed, the cat at my side. My phone sat next to me on the nightstand, screen up. Nothing, no calls, no texts. No missed, "Are you okay?" Not even a shallow apology. They hadn't noticed yet. Or maybe they had and chose silence. Either way, the quiet said more than 1,000 screaming voicemails. Sleep didn't come easy. I drifted in and out, waking at every small noise. The upstairs toilet, a car passing, someone laughing too loud in the parking lot. But I never felt scared, just suspended, like standing on the edge of something huge but not falling yet. When light finally started to leak through the blinds, it looked gray, like the day wasn't sure whether to show up. I sat up, stretched my arms slowly, rolled to the sink, and made a cup of instant coffee. It tasted like cardboard and regret, but it was warm. I checked my phone again, still nothing. No one had called, no one had texted, no emails, no pings, no missed notifications, nothing. The cat rubbed her head against my elbow, oblivious. I sat there for a while longer, staring out through the cheap curtains at the empty parking lot. They hadn't noticed yet, but they were about to. I didn't need to look at the phone to feel it. Something inside me had already shifted, a quiet certainty that the moment they did notice, it wouldn't be because they missed me. It would be because they missed what I did. Around 10:27 that morning, the silence cracked. My phone buzzed once. I glanced down. One missed call. Letitia. No voicemail, no message. Just her name sitting there like it had been dropped by accident. I didn't call back. The sound alone was enough. It pulled something loose in me, like a trap door opening. I leaned back against the flimsy headboard of the motel bed, cat curled on my lap, and let my mind go where it had been waiting to go. Back. Back to a time when Letitia's calls didn't make my stomach twist. Back to when being needed felt like love. The first time I ever stepped in financially, it was framed as temporary. Mom had just come out of the hospital. Her blood pressure had nearly killed her. I was 22, working my first real job, still trying to figure out how taxes worked, and Letitia called, crying. "I just need help for a couple weeks," she said. "Rent's due, and Mom's meds are eating up everything." Of course I said yes, and when the next month came and she needed help again, I said yes again, and again, and again. Eventually, no one even asked. Bills just shifted, from their mailbox to mine. My role in the family changed without anyone saying it out loud. From youngest daughter to unofficial accountant, unofficial backup parent, unofficial everything. It didn't happen in one moment. It was death by 1,000 assumptions. "Can you cover this month's copay? I'll send it back next week." "Hey, the heater's out again. We can't swing it right now." "You still got that bonus, right?" It never stopped, because I never made it stop. Every time I hesitated, they reminded me how lucky I was. Not everyone gets to work from home. Not everyone has a husband with a steady job. Not everyone gets to choose if they help. They always made it sound like I was hoarding some kind of blessing. And for a while, I believed them. I thought that if I gave enough, helped enough, proved myself useful enough, I'd finally be safe. Safe from rejection. Safe from being the one left behind. That illusion shattered the day I needed them. After the accident, everything changed. Not just my body, the looks changed, the tone. The way Danilo started sighing louder when I asked for help with groceries. The way Letitia started calling less, until she needed money, of course. I thought I had built something strong by being dependable, but it turned out I had only taught them how to depend on me. The moment I couldn't be their solution, I became invisible. Danilo stayed, technically, but not in any way that mattered. He started using words like exhausting and draining. He stopped touching me, stopped asking how I was, stopped pretending to be proud of me in front of other people. I became something that slowed him down. He never said it outright. He didn't have to. Every passive-aggressive comment, every sigh, every eye roll when I asked for something simple, like folding the laundry or driving me to a doctor's appointment, it all piled up. One night, when I asked if we could hire a part-time nurse just to give him some help, he snapped. "What do you think I am? Your assistant?" I didn't say anything then, just went to bed early. But that line sat with me for weeks. I'd paid for his car, paid off his credit card debt, paid for his mother's dentures. And the first time I asked for help that might inconvenience him, I was a burden. Letitia wasn't any better. When I told her I couldn't make it to her son's school play because I had physical therapy, she said, "You used to try harder for us." Not, "How are you?" Not, "What do you need?" Just a guilt trip, carefully packaged as a complaint. Even Mom, who used to tuck my hair behind my ear when I was little and whisper I was her bright one, had gone quiet. Not cruel, but distant. Like I'd become a reminder of something she didn't want to look at. The only living thing that never looked at me with disappointment was the cat. My grandmother's cat, left to me in her will. She was the last person who loved me without asking for a thing in return. That thought tugged me back to the present. The phone buzzed again. Twice. Then again. 6 missed calls now. No texts, no voicemails. Just missed calls multiplying like mosquitoes. Still not a single message asking if I was okay. Because I knew they didn't care if I was okay. They were calling because something wasn't working. Maybe the automatic mortgage transfer had bounced. Maybe tuition hadn't gone through. Maybe the insurance company finally called them directly. But none of them had stopped to think why. I sat still in that narrow motel bed, phone buzzing again, the cat pressing her head against my arm like she knew. They weren't calling out of worry. They weren't calling because they loved me. They were calling because their lifeline had just gone quiet. They weren't calling to ask if I was okay. They were calling because something had stopped working. I knew it the moment my phone buzzed again, a short, annoyed vibration that broke the quiet hum of the old heater in the corner of the motel room. This time, it wasn't just a missed call. It was a text. Not a question like, "Are you safe?" or "Where are you?" No, the screen lit up with just 4 cold words. "What did you do?" I stared at it for a while. No part of me was surprised. That was how it always went. Straight to blame, skipping concern like it was a luxury they couldn't afford. The message hit harder than it should have, even though I'd been preparing for it. I didn't reply. Another message popped up a few minutes later. Then another. They came fast after that, like someone trying to plug a leak that just kept spreading. "We need to talk. Mom's worried. You're not answering, and it's making things worse." Worse for who? I placed the phone face down on the motel nightstand, took a breath, and focused on the quiet again. It was the kind of silence that didn't settle, too fragile, like a glass set too close to the edge. My cat stretched across the bed next to me, unconcerned, soft and steady in a way I wasn't. I reached for the remote, tried watching something, anything, to pull myself out of that rising tension, but nothing held. The noise in my head was louder than the volume on the TV. The phone buzzed again. I didn't need to check it. I already knew what it would be. Another message shifting tone. And there it was. So you're just going to cut us off? After everything we've done for you? Everything they'd done, that was bold. Their words were slippery, framed as care, but soaked in pressure. Not once had they asked what happened that night. Not one word about the suitcase, the cat, the wheelchair still wedged in the doorway when the door slammed shut behind me. The next message came 5 minutes later, like they had coordinated a campaign. You didn't have to make it like this. We could have handled it differently if you just talked to us. Talk to them? They made it clear there was no conversation to be had. My sister had screamed in my face. My husband had tossed my life, literally, into the driveway. And my mother, she didn't even blink. Now they wanted to talk? Another vibration. This one a call. It was Danilo. I watched the phone ring, his name blinking on the screen like it still held weight, like he still had the right. I let it go to voicemail. My hand hovered over the screen for a second. I thought about answering, not to argue, not to explain, just to hear the tone of his voice. Was he panicked? Was he angry? Did he sound like someone who realized what he'd done? But no, I didn't answer. Instead, I set the phone back down and stood, shifted, toward the window. The light was dimmer now, the sky shifting from dull gray to something closer to orange, the sun finally deciding to show up late in the day. Cars passed occasionally on the road outside, ordinary people going about their evening. Another call came, this time from Letitia. I ignored it too. It wasn't about me. Not really. It never had been. They weren't calling to fix things. They weren't calling to apologize or to check if I had food or shelter. They were calling because things were unraveling, and they wanted control back. The next batch of messages confirmed it. You're acting crazy. You stormed out. This is looking bad. People are asking questions. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, just clarity. They were already rewriting the story. In their version, I was unstable, dramatic, vindictive. Not a woman shoved out of her home after years of footing the bill, but someone who just snapped. One message actually made me laugh. Out loud, a sharp sound that startled the cat. You're hurting the family by doing this. Right, because not paying for their groceries, tuition, and car insurance was an act of violence now. Me sitting in this bare motel room with nothing but a duffel bag and a cat was somehow causing them harm. The gall. Then came the subtler messages. The ones that sounded like warnings more than communication. People are getting concerned. This isn't the image you want out there. We're trying to keep this quiet. That was when the real fear crawled in, not because I believed them, but because I understood them. This wasn't panic, it was strategy. They were prepping the narrative, positioning themselves as the victims, painting me as unwell. If I responded now, emotionally, defensively, I'd be walking straight into it, giving them exactly what they needed to paint their picture. So I stayed quiet, not out of weakness, not because I didn't have words, but because I knew better. Silence now was armor, a boundary, a line in the sand. I wasn't going to fight in the way they were used to. No yelling, no begging, no justifying. I wasn't going to be the woman who paid and stayed. I was going to be the woman who left and didn't look back. That was when I understood. They weren't trying to fix things. They were trying to control the story. Once that settled in, the noise stopped. Not the noise in my head. That stayed. But the phone went quiet in a way that felt deliberate, almost calculated. No more messages, no missed calls, no sudden concern, just absence. Night came on slowly, the kind that doesn't announce itself, just creeps in and changes the color of everything. I turned on a single lamp in the motel room and left the rest dark. The silence pressed in from all sides, thicker now without the buzz of accusations to cut through it. This was the part no one warned you about. The space after the fight. After the adrenaline fades and you're left alone with your own thoughts. I checked the phone again, even though I knew there would be nothing. Still nothing. It wasn't peace, it was withholding. The kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you've gone too far, even when you know you haven't. I tried distracting myself, folded the same shirt twice, adjusted the blanket on the bed, straightened a nightstand that didn't need it. Every movement felt heavier than it should have, like gravity had quietly been turned up. Then my body reminded me it hadn't signed up for any of this. The ache started low in my back and spread outward, slow and insistent. I shifted in the chair, then again, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. There wasn't one. Being alone at night in a wheelchair has a way of amplifying everything: pain, fear, doubt. There's no one to hand you something you dropped, no one to notice if you're struggling. Just you and the reality of your own limits. I hated that part, not the chair itself, but what it represented in moments like this. Vulnerability, dependence, the thing they'd all grown tired of pretending didn't bother them. I closed my eyes and let my head fall back. For a moment, I let myself admit something I didn't want to say out loud. I was scared, not of them, of myself, of what this would cost, of how long I could hold the line before loneliness wore me down the way guilt always had. The phone sat on the bed within reach. After a while, I picked it up. My thumb moved on instinct, unlocking the screen, opening the banking app I'd spent years inside of. It felt familiar, almost comforting, rows of numbers, accounts I knew by heart, responsibilities I'd carried so long they felt like part of my identity. And there it was, the thought I swore I wouldn't have, maybe just one payment, just to calm things down, just to stop the chaos. I told myself it wouldn't mean anything, that it wouldn't undo everything, that it was just buying time, peace, quiet. I hovered there, fingers suspended above the screen, my chest tight with a shame I hadn't expected. I hated how natural it felt, how quickly my mind slid back into that old role. Fix it, smooth it over, make it easier for everyone else. That was who I'd been for so long that the idea of stopping still felt wrong. Then something else surfaced. Not a voice, not a lecture, just an image. My mother standing in the doorway, not yelling, not crying, not reaching out, just standing there, arms at her sides, eyes empty. Like she was watching something she'd already decided not to intervene in. Like she'd chosen distance over discomfort. That look had followed me since I left. More than the shouting. More than the suitcase on the pavement. Because it said everything. It said I wasn't worth defending, not worth inconvenience, not worth choosing. My finger lowered. I locked the phone and set it face down on the bed. It wasn't confidence that stopped me. It was effort, the kind that burns, the kind that feels like you're holding your breath underwater longer than you should. I chose discomfort over self-betrayal. The pain didn't go away, the doubt didn't disappear, but something else took their place, a quiet, stubborn resolve that didn't need to announce itself. I transferred to the bed slowly, muscles protesting every movement. Once I was settled, I lay there listening to the sounds of the building. A door closing down the hall. A car starting somewhere outside. Pipes knocking in the walls. Normal life continuing. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing now that the phone was out of reach. I wondered what they were doing, who they were calling next, how they were explaining my silence. I knew this wasn't over. People like them didn't let go when control slipped. They pushed harder, found new angles, new pressure points. Somewhere between one shallow breath and the next, it became clear. This night wasn't the end. It was the pause before something sharper. I didn't know it yet, but they weren't done pushing. I knew they wouldn't stop. Not yet. They weren't done pushing. I fell asleep late and woke up early, not fully rested, but alert in the way your body gets when it's bracing for something. The kind of tired that has tension tucked into it. The sun had barely made its way through the thin curtain when my phone lit up. 83 missed calls. 42 texts, 6 voicemails. The flood had returned, but this time it felt different, sharper, meaner. I stared at the screen for a long moment before touching anything. I didn't even have to open them to see the shift. The preview lines were enough. Words like ungrateful and abandonment. Mentions of lawyers, of family reputation, of everything I supposedly owed them. I clicked on the first message without really meaning to. From Letitia. Everyone's starting to ask questions. We're trying to protect you, but you're making it really hard. Protect me. Like I was the dangerous one now. Another from Danilo. You know this won't look good for you in court if it comes to that. You can still fix it. There was no court, no legal leverage, just words meant to sound official, intimidating, like putting on a badge made out of paper. I kept reading, each message stacked on the one before it. The tone went from feigned confusion to straight-up commands. You need to call us back. This isn't just about money anymore. You've made your point. Now act like a grown-up and stop this. Not once, not one single message, asked if I was okay. No one said, we're worried about you. No one asked, are you safe? Not even a half-hearted, can we talk? That silence screamed louder than all the texts combined. And yet, as I sat there rereading them, something started to shift. The words that had always knocked the air out of me before, suddenly, didn't. I was still scared, sure, but the fear didn't paralyze me this time. It sharpened me. I looked again at Letitia's phrasing. Everyone's starting to ask questions. Who was everyone? And why would questions make them nervous, unless they had something to hide? That's when it hit me. They weren't just angry, they were rattled, panicked. They weren't operating from a place of power anymore. They were flailing, trying to bluff their way back into control, trying to make me feel like the unstable one, the selfish one, the threat. And for a long time, that would have worked. For years, I responded to pressure like it was duty. I fixed what I didn't break. I paid what wasn't mine. I said yes when I meant no because I didn't want to be called ungrateful. But this morning, I didn't feel ungrateful. I felt insulted. So I started running a mental checklist, an inventory of truth to keep myself grounded. The accounts, all in my name, the payments, voluntary, the financial support, never contractually obligated. The house, still deeded to them, not me. The years I gave, can't be repossessed. I took a deep breath and said it out loud, quiet but firm. I'm not trapped. It wasn't defiant. It wasn't dramatic. It was just true. And it cracked something open inside me. I didn't need them to approve of me anymore. I didn't need to explain. I didn't even need them to like me. I only needed to stop giving them the tools to hurt me. More notifications buzzed in, but I didn't look right away. I moved slowly around the room, made some instant coffee, took a few sips before it went cold. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Then one more message came through, different in tone. It was from my sister again. Don't be stupid. You think they'll side with you when they know everything? When they know how unstable you've always been? It was short, rushed, and vicious. There it was, the mask finally off. She wasn't trying to get through to me. She was laying groundwork, planting the story, shifting the blame. And I realized they needed me to respond. They needed me to panic, to explain, to defend myself. Because without me playing my part, the story didn't work. That was the moment I knew. If I stayed silent now, I would lose everything. But I also knew that responding with noise, with panic or emotion, would hand them exactly what they wanted. So I didn't. I sat in that tiny kitchen, my phone face down on the table, the light blinking from the corner like it was daring me to cave. Instead, I made tea. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed to do something ordinary. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They'd tried guilt, then threats. Now they were swinging wild, hoping something would land hard enough to get me back in line. I could feel it through every word they sent. This frantic need to pull me back into the role I'd played for so long. The dependable one, the fixer, the quiet one. But I wasn't going to fight them anymore, not on their terms. By early afternoon, the messages came in waves, sometimes minutes apart. Accusations hidden in fake concern. Confusing logic meant to destabilize. Warnings about how others were starting to notice my behavior. They were building a story, that much was clear. A story where I was the unstable one, the selfish one, the one who abandoned family in a time of need. I didn't reply, not once. But I started collecting screenshots, saved voicemails, timestamps. I labeled each file clearly by date, sender, tone. Not because I planned to sue or go public. I didn't need a courtroom. I just needed clarity. Documentation was my quiet armor. I didn't announce it. I didn't hint. I let them talk, and they did. With each new message, the cracks in their version widened. Letitia contradicted herself twice before noon. In one text, she said, I stormed out in a rage. 20 minutes later, she claimed I'd left without a word, stone cold. So which was it? Danilo tried to sound official again, referencing pending legal action and emotional damages, but then followed it up with, we just want things to go back to how they were. That sentence alone said more than they realized. They didn't want resolution, they wanted reversal. They wanted me to undo the boundary. And for the first time in this entire mess, I didn't feel caught. I felt in control. Not with power or revenge, but with truth. Quiet, steady truth. Then something happened I didn't expect. An email popped into my inbox, the subject line simple. Question about recent events. It was from Martha, an old neighbor from our childhood home. Not close, not someone I ever confided in, but always kind. She'd seen the Facebook posts, she said. Something about me being in crisis. Something about prayers needed for family restoration. Her message was short. Hey, I know we haven't talked in years, but some of what I'm reading doesn't sound like you. Is everything okay? If you want to talk, I'm here. It stopped me cold. For the first time, someone outside the family circle had looked at their version and said, wait, this doesn't add up. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I sat with it, heart pounding in a different way now. Not from fear, from validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't alone in seeing what was happening. By late afternoon, I had 3 new folders on my laptop. Narrative shift, contradictions, and witness reach-outs. I never thought I'd be the type to label anything that formally, but it helped. It made things real, not emotional, not theoretical, tangible. I could have replied. I could have fired back with timelines, receipts, even screenshots. But I didn't. Because timing mattered. Because the more they talked, the more they unraveled. Because they were so busy trying to paint me as the problem, they never noticed they were giving me all the proof I'd ever need. Dinner came and went with barely a thought. I picked at a microwaved meal, more focused on sorting files than food. Outside, the sun began to fade, casting long shadows through the window. Inside, I felt sharper than I had in days. They thought I was cornered, but they had no idea what was already in motion. Sleep didn't come easily that night, but when it finally did, it was deep and heavy. My body had surrendered before my mind ever stopped turning. I must have drifted off sometime after midnight, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft breathing of the cat curled against my leg. The world, for a brief stretch, went still. Then morning came, and so did the phone. It didn't ring once. It vibrated continuously, buzzing against the wooden side table like a living thing, insistent and furious. I stirred, groggy, confused at first, then sat up abruptly as the screen lit up again and again. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, alerts stacking one on top of the other. I picked it up without thinking. 83 missed calls. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't know whether to laugh or drop the phone. 83, not 3, not 20, 83. And the number was still climbing. They weren't in control anymore. They were unraveling. I opened the voicemail tab. The first message was Letitia's voice, sharp, frantic, breathless. "You need to call me right now. This has gone too far. You don't understand what you're doing." The second was from Danilo, slower, more calculated. "You're hurting people. I hope you realize that. We're trying to fix this, but your silence, it's not strength, it's cruelty." By the 7th or 8th message, the tone had shifted, from fury to desperation, from demands to pleading. "Please," Letitia said in one message, her voice cracking. "I know we said things, but we can't keep living like this. Just call me back. Just one call." None of them mentioned what they'd done. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement of the months, no, years, of quiet theft, of gaslighting, of pushing boundaries and dressing it up as love. It wasn't about fixing things. It never had been. It was about regaining access. They weren't missing me. They were missing the money. The silence had turned the mirror on them, and they didn't like what they saw. I placed the phone face down. For a while, I just sat there. The cat stretched and yawned beside me, blissfully unaware. I reached out, stroked her fur slowly, grounding myself in the rhythm of the moment. Her presence reminded me of something my grandmother used to say. "People who love you will make space for your silence." These people, they never had. And suddenly, I remembered the way my grandmother would sit quietly at the end of the day, knitting or just staring out the window. She wasn't performing. She wasn't explaining. She was simply being. I wanted that. I deserved that. But still, the thought came. What if I just answered once? Said something simple. Let them hear my voice and let it all go? Wouldn't it ease the weight, smooth the sharp edges of the day? Then I saw the screen light up again. Another missed call, and with it, I felt the cost. Answering meant stepping back into their rhythm, their chaos, their story. I stood up, slowly, and wheeled myself to the kitchen. I made coffee, washed a few dishes I'd left in the sink. I didn't check the phone again. Around mid-morning, it finally stopped. The buzzing, the ringing, the chaos. It ended not with a bang, but with a pause. A fragile, heavy quiet. I returned to the couch, cat in tow, and stared out the window. Trees swayed gently outside, and for the first time in days, I could hear the world again. Not them, not their version, just life. I hadn't blocked them. I hadn't cursed or fought or raged. I had simply chosen not to answer. And that silence, this peace, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. That was the last moment they could have reached me, and they chose not to change. A few days passed like fog lifting after a long storm. There wasn't some dramatic end, no bang, no final argument. Just stillness. The phone stopped buzzing, my inbox quieted, no more missed calls, no more half-voiced threats disguised as concern, no more desperate messages pretending to be apologies. What came next wasn't joy. It was quiet. I moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place where the neighbors nodded politely but didn't ask questions, where no one cared who I used to be to anyone else. There was a small patio out back with 2 chairs, one of which I claimed for my morning coffee. The other stayed empty, though sometimes the cat jumped up and curled into its cushion like she knew the seat needed warmth. My days settled into a rhythm: coffee, feeding the cat, checking a short list of emails, reading, stretching my legs along the smooth hardwood floor. The absence of noise, emotional, digital, familial, was jarring at first. I kept waiting for it to crash back in, but it didn't. Peace, I learned, isn't loud. It's repetitive. It's ordinary. It's folding laundry without rehearsing comebacks in your head. It's checking your bank account and knowing every penny is your own. It's silence that doesn't make you anxious. Then, one afternoon, a message came, not directly. Through someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, a mutual acquaintance, harmless, neutral. They forwarded me a note. "Just so you're aware," they said. The message was from Letitia. It didn't mention the past, no regrets, no reflection. It said, "Maybe enough time has passed for you to think more clearly. You know we didn't mean for things to get like this. You're still family. Still family." I didn't reply. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I just sat with it. Still family? After everything? That wasn't an apology. That was a reset button. And I wasn't resetting. A couple of days later, I heard through another third party, someone who didn't know they were feeding me clarity, that the house had been sold. Something about back taxes, unpaid debts. The story was vague, sanitized. "They're adjusting," the person said lightly, like it was just a season of life they were weathering. They weren't ruined, just facing consequences. And I wasn't the villain, just absent. I never wished them harm. Even now, there's no hate in me, just distance. I don't relish their struggle, but I won't carry it either. There was a moment a few mornings back, I remember it clearly, when I reached for my phone and realized I wasn't checking for damage. Not scanning for missed calls or angry messages. Just checking the weather. It struck me how long I'd lived with that weight. The readiness, the bracing, the constant internal rehearsal of explanations, defenses, boundaries I'd have to reassert. And now it was gone. That was the moment I knew. I was free. Not because they stopped trying, but because I stopped playing. I didn't need their remorse. I didn't need them to admit what they'd done or even understand it. I didn't need their version of closure. I just needed space. I stopped measuring peace by the volume of apologies. I started measuring it by how little I needed them. The urge to win faded too. That old part of me, the one that used to crave vindication to prove I was right, it got quieter. Because what I really wanted wasn't justice. It was rest, and I had it now. Some people think closure comes when the other person finally admits their wrongs. I disagree. Closure is when you no longer need them to. I didn't block them. I didn't burn bridges or write long goodbye letters. I simply stopped reaching back. No announcement, no theatrics, just silence. A deliberate choice. And in that silence, a boundary formed, not made of anger or punishment, but clarity. I didn't ruin their lives. I just stopped living mine for them.